to decide the formula involved in terms of deciding how much compensation is given there. And again, a similar theme. He talks about reasonable compensation to landlords if they find themselves in a position under a Labour government where tenants have a right to buy the property that they live in. So there are a lot of grey areas, a lot of things we don't know, but certainly the direction of travel is clear for international investors, that this is a very left-leaning version of the Labour Party. It has been so under Jeremy Corbyn for many years. They've talked about clamping down on bonus culture, introducing a financial transaction tax. They want to give 10% of businesses to employees in a worker ownership fund. That would apply to businesses of a certain size. So there are a host of policies but there's also the infrastructure agenda. I talked to the BCC's Andrew Marshall, who said there are areas that business and Labour agree on. For example, big investment in infrastructure.
Wow, we could get 10% of Bloomberg. That would be pretty sweet. Would that fly? Probably not. All right. Anna Edwards, thanks very much. Down there at the Labour Party, at the extremely left-leaning Labour Party conference. We're going to get back to her a little bit later. I want to bring our listeners the Eurozone PMIs. We've been getting PMIs throughout the day. They've been huge disappointments. And spoiler alert, before I get to the markets, I will tell you they have weighed on markets significantly. Certainly German PMIs at the lowest level that I've seen following markets. We're now getting the Eurozone, the collective Eurozone data. And what we've got on the manufacturing PMI is a 45.6, missing the survey by a lot. The survey was for 47.3, both contractions, of course, but the actual number 45.6, missing the survey and missing the prior month's reading. In terms of the services PMI, it's still an expansion, 52, but also missing the survey at 53.3, and the composite number is 50.4. So just sort of treading water there in terms of keeping it above the 50 line, but also missing the survey at 52.0. So PMIs are a big disappointment from Germany to France, and now the Eurozone PMI is disappointing as well. In terms of the markets, we do see the DAX now down 1.25%, 156 points is the loss. The CAC 40 is down 0.8% or 47 points, and the FTSE is down 0.4% or 30 points. So we see markets down. They had been down earlier, just not as severely, and actually the FTSE had been gaining, and it's now turned around and lost everything it's gained and then some. Let's get over to Hani Reda. He is the portfolio manager at Global Multi-Asset Investments at PineBridge Investments. And Hani, what do you think about these PMIs? I mean, we knew that they were bad. We weren't expecting manufacturing to be an expansion here, but it's a much worse contraction than we were looking for.
Yes, good morning, Matt. Good to be here. I would say fully agree with that assessment, but to us, to be honest, not that much of a surprise. The weakness that we're seeing is really due to a couple of things, I would say. One is that, the trade war has really impacted this segment of the global economy most intensely, and Europe is very susceptible to that weakness. And every stimulus form that we've seen so far, I know the ECB just got started, but up to now, really the stimulus that we've seen in the global economy has come from China and from the US. China's stimulus, however, is much more domestically focused, and that's why we have not seen a lift coming to Europe, which has normally benefited from a much more investment-led stimulus out of China. So to us, it's going to take quite some time to see some improvement coming to Europe.
We still see, when you look at European stocks, some pretty fantastic performance, at least if you're just looking at this year, right? The CAC is up almost 20%. The DAX is up 17%. The FTSE MIB in Milan up almost 20%. I mean, these are S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial level numbers. Why are stocks here doing just as well as they are in New York?
So I think what the market is doing is focusing on financial conditions and the discount rate. So yes, growth is lower. It's actually up, negative as far as the soft data is concerned, still not negative on hard data, but that lower growth is somewhat offset by ongoing easing of financial conditions. And so we've seen the monetary policy put a floor on things, and it reduces that discount rate, reduces that cost of capital to some extent. And so that helps to offset, the lower cash flows that equities are pricing in. But, to us, that still creates a setup which is not particularly attractive, and that's why we've been positioned away from European equities this time.
So what do you like? What are the investments that when you wake up in the morning get you pumped up to go to work on a Monday?
Yeah, so I would say two particular areas. One is that to us, the U.S. is still a place where very clearly you see the transmission of monetary policy working. It's still working, and the cuts that the Fed has done so far, and we expect more to come, are going to be very positive to reignite a cyclical upturn in the U.S. And we're already seeing some very good signs of that coming through in the most interest rate sensitive parts of the economy, things like housing. And so to us, U.S. cyclical exposures, you don't need to even get too precise with the specific industry or sub-industry area. If you look at cyclicals as a whole, they're very well positioned to benefit from improving growth in the U.S. Going into next year. That's one area. And the other is pockets of emerging markets. I mentioned China. We like China A shares, which are much more domestically driven, will benefit from all of the buildup of stimulus that the Chinese authorities have put through, for example, tax cuts and some infrastructure spending that's going to start to come through more and more going into next year. So those are two areas that I would say are looking quite attractive to us.
Great. It's been fantastic getting some time with you, Hanny, today. Thanks so much for joining me and Anna on Bloomberg Television and here on Bloomberg Radio as well. Hanny Reda is Portfolio Manager for Global Multi-Asset Strategies at PineBridge Investments. Now let's get the global news headlines. For that, we go to Leanne Gerrans. Leanne?
Good morning, Matt. Let's start with President Donald Trump, who says he has no intention of meeting Iranian President Rouhani at this week's UN General Assembly, but left the door open to the possibility that he might. This comes as the US is sending more troops to Saudi Arabia, this in response to the attack on oil fields. Iran has denied responsibility for the strike, but is refusing to rule out a military conflict. Elsewhere, President Donald Trump and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi have exchanged warm words of friendship. The two leaders spoke in Texas before 50,000 Indian Americans, an influential voter base. Modi praised Trump, who says India has a true friend in the White House.
Mr. President, this morning in Houston, you can hear the heartbeat of this great partnership in this celebration of the world's two largest democracies.
Crossing over to Hong Kong, hundreds of protesters gathered at malls and vandalized a train station yesterday before clashing with police. Bloomberg's Karen Lee reports on the 16th straight week of protests.
The rallies were relatively muted, coming after Saturday clashes that continued late into the night as protesters threw petrol bombs and police fired tear gas, with some officers coming under direct attack. The violence comes as Hong Kong anticipates large-scale protests on the October 1st anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. In Hong Kong, Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And Israeli Arab lawmakers have recommended that the former army chief Benny Gantz should be prime minister. Last week's election in Israel put the current leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, neck and neck with Gantz. The two are now vying to build a governing coalition. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Matt.
Leanne, thanks very much for that. Now let's get the European Sports Report with George Alderman. George?
Liverpool are 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League after making it 6 wins from 6 games at the start of the season. The leaders held on for a 2-1 victory away to Chelsea, but manager Jurgen Klopp says he's not getting carried away. Arsenal fought back with 10 men to triumph 3-2 in a thriller with Aston Villa. West Ham are up to 5th after inflicting a 2-0 defeat on Manchester United. Wolves drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace. Some of the pressure on Hearts manager Craig Levein has eased following their 2-1 win over rivals Hibs in the Scottish Premiership. Leader Celtic continued their 100% start to the campaign with a 3-1 victory against Kilmarnock. Rangers beat St Johnstone 4-0. Wales will look to put their off-field issues behind them when they start their Rugby Union World Cup campaign this morning. They play Georgia in their opening Pool D match in Japan without assistant coach Rob Howley, who's been sent home due to allegations he broke betting rules. England got going with a 35-3 victory over Tonga in Pool C. Ireland thrashed Scotland 27-3 in Pool A.
Now Pete Fox has the U.S. sports.
Patrick Mahomes threw for 374 and 3 touchdowns as the Chiefs edged the Ravens, who rallied in the fourth quarter with 2 touchdowns and a field goal, but they fall short 33-28. Vikings by 20 over the Raiders in Minnesota. Giants get 4 touchdowns from Daniel Jones in his debut, 2 in the air, 2 on the ground, as they come from behind to beat the Bucs 32-31, and the Niners survive 5 turnovers to edge the Steelers 24-20. I'm Pete Fox. That's your Bloomberg NBC World Sports Update.
When we come back, we'll talk with Chris Bryant about WeWork's CEO. This is Bloomberg.
All money managers might seem the same, but while some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios, Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. So if you're in or nearing retirement, talk with us and find out why investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments. Clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Joan London with The Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, A Place for Mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Influential Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
Woo Chung is Director General for the ADB Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department. Let me get started with what's happening in Asia. How much of the burden sharing is happening across these Asian economies when it comes to governments, the private sector, and organizations like yourself in dealing with climate change?
So the development needs in Asia is huge. You're looking at trillions of dollars. And ADB and the World Bank and all the MDBs, multilateral development banks combined, goes up to only billions. So we do need to fill the gap with the private sector investment. So Asian Development Bank's long-term strategy is to increase our private sector lending from about 10% of the portfolio to over 30% over the next 5 years. So we are creating an enabling environment for private sector investors to come in.
So Chung, how much is the Asian Development Bank doing in ensuring that there's a just transition to green economy?
We have to make sure that every country, especially the smaller countries, are benefiting from adaptation funds. So as a result of the global commitment,
to deal with climate change. There are lots of pockets of money, resources out there, so we can pilot test and demonstrate from the community level what kind of adaptation measures that can be implemented.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Anne-Marie Hordern with the Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. European equities starting off the week on the back foot. Stock 600 down nearly 0.9%. MLive's Benjamin Dow says traders may have just seen the last sunny day this quarter for European stocks after dismal French and German PMIs earlier this morning. Asian equities had a similar sentiment. The MSCI Asia Pacific, excluding Japan because Tokyo's closed for holiday, down 0.3%. In foreign exchange, the British pound down nearly 0.4% against the U.S. dollar. $1.24 is where we trade. Labour Party holds its party conference this week. Focus is going to be on Brexit and the economy, of course. And the euro trading $1.09 against the U.S. dollar. Mario Draghi will speak twice today in European Parliament in Brussels. In commodities, I'm looking at Brent crude. It's up this morning about 0.3%. We saw some geopolitical risk and doubts over how quickly the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia can restore lost output. That seems to be lingering in the market. And then finally in the bond market, from the United Kingdom to Netherlands, we are seeing bonds tick higher with yields coming down across the board. That's a Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on in the world.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. President Trump has appeared to acknowledge he discussed former Vice President Joe Biden in a phone call with Ukraine's president. That call is now the subject of a congressional investigation. The president says the discussion was about corruption, but it is alleged Trump repeatedly asked the new president to investigate the son of the Democratic presidential hopeful. President Trump is skipping this week's climate change debate at the United Nations, but insists his absence is not meant to be a snub. Flying off to events in Texas and Ohio, he said he's very busy but is being briefed on important matters. The debate features youth leaders such as Greta Thunberg. And finally, the Rugby World Cup is now underway in Japan, with the hosts and the defending champions both recording wins. Japan beat Russia in the tournament's opening match, while New Zealand overcame South Africa on Saturday. Two-time winners Australia beat Fiji, while 2003 champions England defeated Tonga, and that was yesterday. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is
Bloomberg Opinion. Informed perspectives and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Just gone 9:20 in the city of London. It's time for us to check in with our Bloomberg opinion columnist. Today we have Chris Bryant here in Berlin, who's going to talk to us about WeWork and Thomas Cook. What is there to say about Thomas Cook? I mean, it's just, I'm sorry if you booked a ticket with that travel agency and it's done, right?
It's done. I mean, what's extraordinary is that Thomas Cook is now being placed, into insolvency proceedings. It's left now for its bondholders and others to pick over what's left. But this business is now over. Holidaymakers will have to be flown home, and the post-mortem will begin about how this happened, because it is shocking, I think, that a year ago, I think there were almost no analysts who had a sell rating on this stock. A year later, the company's bust. This is a publicly traded company, familiar to millions of people on their high streets. You know, there has a lot of stores that go in and buy holidays. That, of course, is one of the problems. Who goes to a high street store to buy their holiday anymore? They're obviously facing a lot more digital competition, and it wasn't helped by the fact that it's also a company with a huge amount of debt. Right. And in recent weeks, they've tried to recapitalize the business, but fundamentally confidence wasn't there anymore. Very unhelpful if you're a holiday company. Reports in the press saying you might go bust. Well, I'm not going to book a holiday with you, am I? And that was one of the problems too, I think, probably.
I'd say there are some very cheap Thomas Cook flights out of Cologne. There's a Montego Bay flight that I've often thought about taking to Jamaica. But it's otherwise, it's not the kind of thing that really appeals to, I think, a modern traveler. Nonetheless, there are tens of thousands who are stranded right now. And all of those people are going to be using TUI from now on, or one of the other big travel agencies, and that's why they're soaring in markets today. More interesting, I think, is WeWork. And does it look like Adam Newman is going to be pushed out as CEO? He has so many powers, I guess, in the prospectus it said he can fire the entire board himself. So right. How will they get rid of him?
Well, it's going to come down to a sort of Wild West shootout, potentially. I mean, you've got, on the one hand, as you say, Adam Newman, who has almost absolute control of this company, the power to hire and fire board members, and apparently a board of directors who wants to push him out. That may not be a straightforward process. The board itself has a bit of egg on its face. So in recent days, we've had no end of revelations about Adam Newman, the way he likes to run the company, flights on private jets, and so forth. But this is all stuff.
First of all, I think we'd all fly on private jets.
Well, not necessarily in the style that apparently Mr. Newman and his colleagues did.
We wouldn't all get high as much, probably. But certainly we wouldn't say it on publicly broadcast international radio.
Well, indeed, I don't think we should go there. So, but anyway, there have been terrible press reports about Mr. Newman, but the board has enabled him, and over the recent years, they were quite happy to sign off on business plans that had huge amounts of cash burn, huge amounts of liability stacking up in for future rent and so forth, and an IPO prospectus that became a sort of butt of jokes on Wall Street, and now they want to push him out.
Yeah. I was thinking about this morning. Masayoshi Son, apparently, from SoftBank, is one of the people who's behind getting rid of him. How did this billionaire, genius investor who's built up one of the biggest, if not the biggest tech funds in the entire world history, allow this kid, basically, this long-haired kid, T-shirt wearing, shot-doing, pot-smoking kid, to have full control of the board?
Well, in many respects, we've reached the sort of the denouement of the tech era, right? You talk about long-haired kids with a T-shirt wearing and so forth. These are the kind of people who've brought tech companies to market in recent years, and betting on those has proved very successful for Mr. Son. But many people said that actually WeWork isn't a tech company; it's a real estate company. It's accruing massive amounts of liabilities, and therefore a very different beast. It needs to be run in a different way. And I dare say, people on the board are now starting to realize that perhaps we need an adult running this company rather than, frankly, a leader who's not covered himself in glory in recent weeks. But will they be able to get this through? I don't know. It's certainly going to be very tense. Mr. Newman, of course, has a financial interest in the IPO going ahead. He obviously wants to maximize his wealth too, and maybe he will come to the conclusion that, well, perhaps I'm not the best guy to run this company.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to watch. Chris, thanks very much for stopping by the radio studio. Chris Bryant there, Bloomberg Opinion writer based here in Berlin. If you want to see more of his work and the work of his colleagues, just type OPIN GO on your Bloomberg terminal. You can get it, of course, on Bloomberg.com as well. Straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, we're back in Brighton for the Labour Party conference. We hear Anna's interview with UK Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell. This is Bloomberg.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr. There are two entrepreneurs who are new to the Los Angeles Dodgers ownership pool. The Dodgers, considered the second most valuable team in baseball, sold stakes to the founder of a building materials company and a real estate investor. Robert Plummer, Chief Executive Officer of RP Lumber, and Alan Smolinski, a principal at Conquest Housing, have joined the team's ownership group. The deal concludes an effort that began in 2017. Because of mushrooming franchise values across all major U.S. sports, owners have found it increasingly difficult to sell shares, many of which come with no board seat or say in how the teams are run. Fantasy sports operator Sports Hub Games Network and the New Jersey Attorney General entered into a consent order in which Sports Hub agreed to pay $30,000 in penalties for operating a fantasy sports website in New Jersey without a permit. And that is a Bloomberg Business of Sports Report. I'm Michael Barr.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
More than just a game, baseball is big business. For the Atlanta Braves, this meant bringing a $1 billion stadium project to life through a public-private partnership, creating the Battery, a mixed-use development that turned an underdeveloped area into a thriving community.
Always on the cutting edge of community development, Cohn Resnick advises industry participants on tax credits, affordable housing, opportunity zones, and more, helping communities reach their full potential. Explore more at cohnresnick.com/MLB. Cohn Resnick, Advisory Assurance Tax. Transform.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again, and this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA net or protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
We all have that one drawer full of things we hold on to. Like Ella's finger paintings or my gardening gloves. And what's this? £400 tucked away at the back. Or it will be when I sell this smartphone on eBay.
Make on average £50 more selling your smartphone on eBay. Making money. It's happening on eBay.
Based on the average selling price of selected pre-owned and unlocked Apple and Samsung devices against selected trading companies, April to June 2019. See ebay.co.uk/make-more for details.
Dreaming of a new kitchen? At Wix, we take care of everything, from expert design to an installation service you can trust. And there's a great price. Right now, there's up to 50% off kitchen installation. Speak to us today and get your kitchen installed for Christmas. For minimum spend, terms and exclusions, see wix.co.uk.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller. We are looking at equity indexes that are down across the board after PMIs across Europe disappointed. We're looking at a drop on the DAX of 1.5% or 180 points. The